Now that the NHL draft lottery is over, we know the order in which teams will be picking, at least the top 16. I figured now would be the perfect time to do my 2023 NHL mock draft. And before we get started, I do want to say I don't claim to be, some scout or an expert when it comes to these prospects. That's why I'm only going to be doing the top 8 picks here. My main focus throughout the year is following the NHL. I do keep up with the prospects who are supposed to be high draft picks in the upcoming draft, but I definitely don't feel like I have a good enough understanding on enough prospects to do, a whole first round mock draft or even a top 15. So that's why we're only going to be doing the top 8. I definitely feel comfortable enough and feel like I have enough knowledge on the prospects who are supposed to go, in the top 10 range as to where I can give you guys a solid top 8 mock draft. So that's what we're going to be doing today. As always, I want to know your guys' thoughts. So leave your top 8 or top 10 mock draft down below in the comments. Who do you want your team to select in the first round if your team has a first round pick? So with that all out of the way, let's go ahead and get started with the Chicago Blackhawks, who will be selecting first overall in the 2023 NHL draft. In my draft lottery reaction video that I posted on the second channel last night, I made a joke that maybe Chicago could swerve everybody and not use that draft pick to take Connor Bedard or maybe trade the pick, but that's just not going to happen. Chicago is going to use this pick on Connor Bedard. He is going to go first overall, 143 points in 57 WHL games this season. I feel like I get comments on the channel almost every day of people asking, do you think Connor Bedard is going to be as good as everyone says he's going to be? Do you feel like he's going to live up to this insane amount of hype he's getting? And my answer to that question is yes. I truly believe Connor Bedard is a generational talent. I think he is a can't miss prospect. Obviously, over the past few years, everybody was seeing the highlights of Connor Bedard in the WHL, but for most people, including myself, that's really all we saw of Connor Bedard. Like, I wasn't sitting there watching full Regina Pats games. I think I might have watched 1 or 2, and just by watching, his highlights alone, everybody knew he was going to be a special player. But when I really realized, yeah, this is a generational talent, there's a reason he's mentioned in the same breath as guys like McDavid and Crosby was during the World Juniors. Specifically, the World Juniors here in Halifax, 23 points in 7 games in a best-on-best tournament, just complete dominance. Every shift he was making something happen. The Blackhawks are getting a franchise-altering player, and as much as I wish he was going to another team, not the Blackhawks, I'm still very excited to see him play in the NHL. Moving on now to the second overall draft pick. This selection will be made by the Anaheim Ducks. I have them taking Adam Fantilli, which should be a surprise to absolutely nobody. Connor Bedard and Adam Fantilli are the consensus number 1 and number 2 overall picks in this year's draft. Fantilli just had one of the best freshman seasons in the NCAA in recent memory, 65 points in 36 games for the University of Michigan. Obviously, he won the Hobey Baker Award. He plays a premium position at center. As much as Ducks fans, I'm sure, are upset that they didn't land the first overall draft pick, you're still getting a prospect who I feel like has all the tools to be a franchise centerman. I think when it comes to Adam Fantilli, absolute worst case scenario is he's a very good number 2 center, and I feel like that's his floor. Moving on now to the third overall draft pick, which will be made by the Columbus Blue Jackets, and I feel like this is where the draft is going to get really interesting. I don't think there is a consensus third overall draft pick. Columbus could definitely go a couple of different ways with this one. For me personally, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets selecting centerman Will Smith out of the U.S. National Development Program. The Columbus Blue Jackets already have a really good core of prospects and young players, guys like David Juracek, Kent Johnson, Cole Sillinger, just to name a few, but I feel like they're lacking a prospect who can one day become a dynamic top-line centerman. As much as I like Kent Johnson, I like him more on the wing. I think Will Smith fits the bill of what the Columbus Blue Jackets could be looking for. He dominated at every level he played this season, 60 games for the U.S. National U18 team, 127 points in the USHL for the U.S. National Development Team, 42 points in 20 games. He absolutely dominated the U18 tournament with 20 points in 7 games. Fantastic vision, unreal set of hands, makes his line mates better. A lot of people credit Will Smith for the unbelievable record-breaking season that Gabe Perreault had, also playing for the U.S. National Development Team. As a Red Wings fan, I would absolutely love if Steve Yzerman could find a way to trade up the draft Will Smith, maybe package his 2 first-round draft picks together, because I feel like Smith is exactly the kind of prospect that the Red Wings need, but I really don't see any scenario where he drops out of the top 5, and in my mock draft, I have him going 3. Continuing on now with the 4th overall pick, I have the San Jose Sharks selecting Matvei Michkov out of Russia. I know Michkov has dropped on a lot of people's rankings and mock drafts because of the uncertainty, because of the fact that he's under contract in the KHL through the 2020 25-26 season, but just based off of pure talent, if Matvei Michkov wasn't under contract in the KHL through 25-26, I feel like this is a guy who could honestly be contending with Adam Fantilli for that number 2 spot. Michkov is as dynamic as it gets, unbelievably skilled, has really high hockey IQ. In 30 KHL games this season as an 18-year-old, he put up 20 points, also had 10 goals in 12 games playing in the VHL, which is basically like the minors for the KHL. I feel like San Jose would be the perfect team to take a swing on a guy like Matvei Michkov, because in all reality, like, yeah, you're gonna have to wait 3 years before Michkov's contract in the KHL is up, but is San Jose gonna be competing over the next 3 years? I don't think so. I can see why a team like Columbus would pass on Michkov and go with a guy like Will Smith. That's why I have it going this way in my mock draft, because I feel like Columbus does want to compete a lot sooner than the Sharks do, and I feel like they're in a position to do that a lot sooner than the Sharks. But when it comes to the Sharks, I feel like it makes all the sense in the world. I'm sure over the next 3 years while Michkov's playing in the KHL, the Sharks are going to add a lot more fantastic prospects to their system. A couple of those guys hit, and then you have Matvei Michkov coming over, who I'm sure at that point might be ready to dominate the NHL immediately. I think this guy has all the potential in the world to be a superstar, and getting a guy with that much talent, with that much potential at 4th overall, I think that's a no-brainer for the Sharks. It's just you have to be patient after you draft them. Moving along now with the 5th overall selection in the 2023 draft, I have the Montreal Canadiens selecting Swedish forward Leo Carlsson, who I've seen a lot of people have as high as number 3 on their rankings and on their mock drafts. As a teenager, Leo Carlsson has spent the last 2 seasons playing in the SHL. This past season, 25 points in 44 games, very respectable numbers playing in a men's league against very good competition. Carlsson is a big dude. He's 6'3". Plays a strong, smart game. From everything I've seen and that I've read up on Leo Carlsson, he projects to be a very good top 6 two-way forward at the NHL level. Had a good showing for Sweden in the most recent World Junior Tournament with 6 points in 7 games. Whether he ends up being a centerman at the NHL level or a winger, I think either way is still going to be very impactful. And Leo Carlsson is somebody who I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see push for an NHL roster spot as soon as next season. Continuing on now with the 6th overall selection, I have the Arizona Coyotes taking Zach Benson out of the WHL. Zach Benson had 36 goals, 62 assists for 98 points in 60 games for the Winnipeg Ice this past season, finishing 3rd in the WHL in scoring behind Chase Wheatcroft, who was an overager, and of course Connor Bedard. Benson is a little bit undersized at just 5'9" and about 163 pounds, but he's got a very high motor, great work ethic, extremely creative player, and he's capable of driving a line from the wing. Sebastian High from Dober Prospects said Benson is one of the smartest players in the entire 2023 draft class. Benson is a guy who I would say is probably at least 2 years out from pushing for an NHL roster spot, but there's no doubt about it, he's got all the potential in the world to be a star. Next up with the 7th overall pick, I have the Philadelphia Flyers selecting Ryan Leonard, also out of the U.S. National Development Program, just like Will Smith. I feel like this year's draft is similar to the 2019 draft in the sense that there's going to be a lot of first-round talent coming to that program. Ryan Leonard is a very versatile player, played all 3 forward positions this season for the U.S. National Development Team. In 57 games for the U18 team, 51 goals, 94 total points. Also lit up the U18 tournament with 17 points in 7 games. That team was just stacked. This upcoming season, Ryan Leonard is going to be playing for Boston College in the NCAA along with Will Smith. I'm not sure if I mentioned that earlier when talking about Smith, but I'm sure those two guys are going to be an unbelievable duo playing together once again next season in the NCAA as opposed to the U.S. National Development Team. And now for the final pick in my top 8 mock draft, I have the Washington Capitals selecting centerman Oliver Moore, also from the U.S. National Development Program. When reading up on Oliver Moore, I swear the first thing that everybody says about him is his incredible elite top-end speed. Incredibly explosive skater. It doesn't take him long to get to that top-end speed either. Offensively, he's a dual threat to both pass and shoot, has a very quick release, had 51 goals and 76 assists for 127 points in 60 games for the U.S. National U18 team. Just like Ryan Leonard and Will Smith, Oliver Moore was also dominant in the U18 tournament with 20 points in 7 games. Again, that team was stacked. On more than one occasion, I read that Dylan Larkin, I guess, is a player comparable to Oliver Moore. And hey, if that's the case, I would absolutely love if the Red Wings were able to snag Oliver Moore at that 9th overall pick, because they need a top-end center. And in this year's draft class, there's definitely no shortage of guys who have the potential to be a top-end center, which is really nice to see. I think this this year's draft is going to be one we look back on years from now and say that draft class was absolutely loaded. So that is going to wrap up my 2023 NHL top 8 mock draft. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm interested to hear what your guys would look like if you want to give me, your top 5, top 10, even your entire first round. Let me know down below in the comments. Also, I'll say it again, I don't claim to be an expert on all these prospects. I just do these for fun because I think it's cool to have something like this to look back on when the actual draft happens and kind of see how close I got. If you guys enjoyed this video and you're excited for the 2023 NHL entry draft, then be sure to leave a like. That's the best way to show your support. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all soon.